Hi everyone, welcome to the session. This is Anuj Singh, Marketing Strategy Coordinator from Edin Foundation. Today we are going to discuss how to build emotional intelligence in the social media centric world. So today we have a guest who is an image consultant, soft skills trainer, and personality development coach, public speaking coach, and last but not the least, she is the founder of Magnifying Impressions. So, as we know, we all are in the digital era where we all are engaged with various social media sites, and yes, these social media sites have their own importance in our life. Uh, it helps in telecommunication. It makes our tasks easier. We can connect with our friends, family, and relatives very easily. But on the other hand, these two have also their own negative effects in our life, on our mental health, on our emotions, and so on. So we'll discuss all these things and how to overcome all these negative effects from our life and maintain a very healthy work-life balance between social media, and our professional life and personal life. So without any further delay, let's welcome Tanya Bhatia on the session. Just wait for a moment to ma'am to join. Hello ma'am,
Hello,
welcome to the
Anuj.
session. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me for this live session. How are you doing?
I'm absolutely doing great, ma'am. Even I was so excited for to meet you in this session. Good to see
Thank
you
you.
here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And today is a very important topic that we are discussing. So I'm really excited for that. And I wish that the people who have joined us, they gain a lot of benefit from it.
Yes, ma'am, sure. So before we begin the session, could you please confirm is my voice audible to you properly?
Yes, your voice is audible. And we can check from the live audience as well if we are completely visible and audible to you, all of you. You can just
Yes,
write
but
yes or no in the comment box and then we'll quickly start. Okay, thank you, Mohit. Okay, we can start now.
yes. So shall we begin?
Yes, yes.
So before we begin the session, I would love to know what actually emotional intelligence does it mean by the term, and how it looks like in the digital era where we all are engaged with the social media sites and all the tech devices.
Sure. So thanks for this question. And this is, I think, a very important question because it sets the foundation for today's discussion. So I'll
Yes,
try to
ma'am.
simplify what emotional intelligence is so that our audience can really understand it in simple words and implement it in their life. So emotional intelligence is made up of two words, emotional and intelligence. Now, every day, on a daily basis, we go through a lot of emotions. You are feeling a certain emotion right now. I am feeling a certain emotion. And no emotion is good or bad. Let us first understand that there is no emotion which is good or bad. Only happiness and excitement is not good. We may feel sad, we may feel angry, we may feel frustrated, we may feel irritated. That is absolutely fine. That is how our physiology is. That is how God has made us. So we can't say that any emotion is good or bad. But the emotions are, you can say, controllable, and the comfortable emotions and the uncomfortable emotions. So when we experience comfortable emotions at that time, it is absolutely fine. We can deal with the situations very easily. But the point is, when we have uncomfortable emotions, that is the time. That is the time we need to be very mindful of how we react to the situation. It is a choice. How we react is a choice. We can't simply say, oh, I'm feeling angry, I need to throw things. People are watching me, I can throw things, I can shout at people. I can't really say that because it is okay to feel an emotion, but how I react in that emotion is absolutely a choice. So, emotional intelligence in simple words means that we are using our intelligence and recognizing and controlling our own emotions. That is what is emotional intelligence. Now, I would also like to, state two aspects to emotional intelligence. The first aspect is in emotional intelligence, we recognize what emotions we go through on a daily basis. And based
Yeah.
on that emotion that we go through, I'll make a list of the emotions that I go through on a daily basis on a piece of paper. And I know that, okay, from today, morning to evening, I went through these emotions. So it is very important to know, to be self aware what emotions one person goes through. And when we are self aware, how we react with other people when we experience those emotions, we need to be very mindful of it. Now, coming to the second aspect, once we have identified what emotions we feel on a daily basis, it is very important to identify what emotions others feel. So, today, if I am talking to my friend and she is very angry with me, or she is shouting at me for a certain reason that I didn't pick up her call, or I didn't inform her something on time, or she is irritated due to certain reason. So, I can't say that you are behaving like that, this is not good, this is not right. I need to understand that she is also a human being and she is very valid in experiencing those emotions because I didn't behave as how I was supposed to. So if she's feeling it, that's fine. Let me give her the time and let me allow her to calm down, and then I'll deal with her. So if she's also shouting and I also shout and we both physically hit each other, then it's a total chaos. If she is doing it, I need to understand as an emotionally intelligent person that it is okay. Let her calm down. I need not react unnecessarily. After 10 minutes or after a day, I can then again talk to her. So, this is what is emotional intelligence.
Exactly, ma'am. Thank you for your nice explanation. Actually, it's all about maintaining our calm and try to understand others' emotion as well as our negative emotions as well, right?
Definitely, definitely. I understand
So,
my emotions, and at the same time, when I'm talking to you, I understand your emotions as well. And then I take the appropriate reaction. How I react is absolutely my choice. I can't say that I am feeling that way, that's why I'm reacting. Reaction is definitely my choice.
exactly. So, since we know we all are in a digital era and we all have our social media sites, and obviously these social media sites work in two ways, positive and negative. These have some positive impacts in our life and some have negative impact on our emotions and on our mental health as well. So, in your opinions, this is a bit technical question. Has the evolution of social media positively impact the discourse on emotional intelligence and its importance?
Okay, so you're talking about the evolution of social media. Has it positively impacted emotional intelligence or negatively?
Exactly.
Am I right? Okay,
Yes.
okay. According to me, the answer is both yes and no. This is my personal opinion. Let me first
Yes.
talk about yes. I think the evolution of social media has positively impacted the discourse of emotional intelligence is because in the recent times, in the past 5 to 6 years, a lot has been talked about the mental health challenges, especially with patrons and actors like Deepika Padukone and Shaheen Bhatt, who is Alia Bhatt's sister. These people have come up and they have actually talked about how they face the mental health challenges and they have made people aware. Now, because
Exactly.
it is only through social media that people are getting to know about the awareness of mental health and they are recognizing that it is important to be taking care of mental health, I think because of this only, people are now paying more attention to what they are feeling on a daily basis. And whenever they have uncomfortable emotion, they do not hesitate to seek help, counseling, or therapy. At the same time, there are a lot of communities on social media where people volunteer and they try to help other people who are dealing with mental health issues and they are not judging them. These
Exactly.
people are not judging them. So I think in both the cases, people are accepting that I need to identify my own emotions and manage my reaction accordingly. and they are identifying other people's emotions, that it is okay that this person is feeling this way, I need to help this person out because he is in a mess. So I think yes, the evolution of social media has positively impacted the discourse of emotional intelligence. So this is about the yes part, which I feel. Yeah. Now coming back to the no part. So I would say that on social media, with so many Instagram pages and YouTube channels coming up, trolling has become very common.
Exactly.
And when we talk about trollers, these people, they hide behind the screen. They do not have the courage to speak face to face or criticize someone, but they take
Yes, ma'am.
pride in writing comments which can hurt the other person.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
in this case, I feel that they are very insensitive. They feel that okay, it is all about my life, I do not care about what other people feel, and they are being very insensitive, they are being very judgmental, they are criticizing people, and they are not paying attention to other people's emotion, which I think is
Exactly.
creating a problem. So evolution of social media, I think, has negatively also impacted the discourse of emotional intelligence.
Yes, ma'am, you are absolutely right. There are two sides of every coin, and social media has also created positive impacts and negative impacts. We got a lot of opportunity there on social media to grow, to generate revenue even, and on the other hand, it also creates, I think, FOMO, like fear of missing out, and social comparison is the recent, we can say, is a negative impact of social media. So it leads to a very innocent question and thought-provoking question. We see in our daily life, like most of the millennials or even social media influencers, they allow their children to use social media sites from the very young age, like when they are 5 or 6 year old. So, in your opinion, is this the right practice? Or if this is the right practice, is there any long-term impact of this practice?
Okay. So again, a very thought-provoking question. We are seeing a lot of YouTubers and content creators who are not just putting their own content, but the content through their children on social media. And according to me, it is definitely impacting the children. And I believe that it is negatively impacting the emotional growth or the emotional quotient of the children. There are again two reasons for this why I say it is negatively impacting. The first reason I say this is because I believe that emotional growth happens in the real world and it never happens in the real world. So when
Exactly.
children are so much, yeah, so when children are so much, glued to the digital world and they just feel that, okay, I need to see how many likes, comments, and how much popularity I have gained on social media, it is distracting them from the real world. In the real world, you need to go out and experience things, come back and share those experiences with your parents, and then the parents can give you the words of wisdom of how they would react in a certain situation and how they would manage their emotions. So I remember when I was growing up, social media was not there and everything was very good. I really enjoyed that time because whatever I experienced in the entire day, I would discuss that with either of my parents. And then they would tell me, okay, you felt like this. I used to do like this. And this is the ideal practice. This is how you should react when you feel like this, or how you should react with a friend, or how you should react in a situation. So at that time, I think it was very clear of how we should uh, control our emotions and react in a certain way. However, now, because parents are also working, they do not usually have much time. So they are not able to share those words of wisdom with their children. And because of this, children are not able to develop their emotional quotient because they are restricted to that digital space and not really going out in the real world. So this is the first reason I feel that social media, if children are having their account on social media and they are becoming popular, then it is definitely negatively impacting their emotional quotient.
Exactly,
um
ma'am.
yeah, I do have the second point also, which I feel I can share here. Um, so, for the second point, I would say that there are two instances. First, I see the parents who are making accounts of the children who are less than 5 years of age, and
Exactly.
the children who are more than 5 years of age. So when the children who are less than 5 years of age, they are shooting reels and videos with their parents, they are enjoying that. It is,
Exactly.
improving their creativity, which is a very nice, I believe, a very nice way of enhancing the talent of the children. But because they do not know what exactly is happening on social media, because they are really small to understand and parents do not give access to the accounts themselves, I
Yes,
think it
ma'am.
is a safe option. It is not impacting their emotional growth in any negative way. But when it comes to children who are more than 5 years old, they are constantly around their parents. And when parents are discussing how much growth is happening on social media for this account, how many likes, comments, share, who is collaborating and who is not. So the child is getting all of that from the parents. Now, here we
Yes.
can't say that the parents can be in a separate room and whenever they are discussing about that, Instagram account or the YouTube account, the children will not listen. They will.
Yes.
We cannot really separate, that process. So, in this case, I would say even the parents are not aware that what to talk in front of the children and what not to. So when they go on social media, even they criticize someone. Both the parents are talking, they can criticize someone and they can, compare one account with another account, one child's talent with another child's talent. So what happens is that the emotions that the parents are feeling, the same emotion even the child will,
Yes, ma'am.
carry forward. And how the parents are reacting negatively, the child will also learn that. So I
Yes.
believe when this is happening, it is negatively impacting the emotional quotient of the children.
Exactly, ma'am. So, if you are allowing, so the conclusion of this question is, if you are allowing your children, so you need to monitor what actually they are doing on social media. And if
Yes,
you are if you are discussing anything, so you should know ki what you are discussing and how it is going to impact your children, right? So
definitely, definitely.
so we are sorry for this. There is a technical question. I need to read it out. So
Hmm.
now we are a world where every new changes take place on a technology basis. Every other day, technology invent new technology. You get to know or new innovations. So in such a case, why it is important to have a high emotional quotient, and being a parent, why should we how should we monitor that we are developing our child in a right manner?
Okay, okay. So first thing that you mentioned is in your question that because of the technological changes which are happening around us,
Yes, ma'am.
a lot of disruptions are also happening. So how is it important for us to manage emotional intelligence? Is that the question?
Yes, yes. You
Okay,
got it right.
okay, okay. As we all know, change is the only constant.
Exactly.
Even when we are doing this session, every moment change is happening, time is moving. We cannot stop change anyhow. If we do not change, we stop growing. Similarly, in everyday scenario, change is happening. Now, whether we accept it gracefully or not, that is completely in our hands. We can cry and crib about the change for 1 day, 2 day, for 1 week, 1 month, but at the end, we will have to accept it. So,
Exactly.
how we accept change completely depends on how we regulate our emotions. If I am able to regulate my emotions quickly, I will be able to manage the changes very quickly and will be able to adapt to those changes. So I believe in this world where change is happening very rapidly, where disruptions are happening very rapidly, it is important to learn certain techniques of how we can manage our emotions and recognize our emotions so that we deal with the changes with a smile. With a smile. Because someone rightly said that what is happening around us matters only 10%, but we feel it is 100%. Just because of the change, we cry and we blame that, this is happening and that is why I'm behaving like this. But the point is, change is only responsible 10%, but rest 90% is how we react to that change. And that determines our success and our flexibility to adapt to change.
Exactly, ma'am. So it leads to a question like I'm also a bibliophile, and you also might be. So according to a recent data, like average mobile spending has increased from 3.7 hours per day to 4.7 hours per day. I'm talking
Mhm.
about world. So from 2019 to 2020. So
Mhm.
we know that digital device and social media is are being used on a huge amount, huge basis. So in such a way, like there are more and more companies growing who provide ebooks, who provide audiobooks, podcast instead of physical books. So do you think that in order to create emotional character development, physical books are going to completely replaced by these audiobooks and podcasts?
Okay. Well, in my opinion, I do not think that audiobooks or podcasts can actually replace reading books in the development of our emotional quotient. Why I say this is, I'm not against the podcast or the videos that we see. They are quite informative. But the thing is, when we talk about the digital space, it is very fast moving, very fast
Exactly.
paced it is. Today, if I decide to watch one video for the development of my knowledge, I do not know how I will end up watching 5 to 6 to 10 videos all in
Yes, yes,
one go.
it
This is
happens.
because of the this is because of the dopamine effect that happens. We feel good, okay, we saw something good and we want to see something more. And this is also how the algorithm of these social media channels is working. They want to give you, show you more improvisations on what related videos and what related audios can you listen to or watch. So in
Yes,
that case, I would say, even if we are consuming certain information, the absorption rate is not as much. We are consuming 100 information, but our brain's capacity to absorb that information is only 50. I'm just taking an example. So in that case, it is very difficult for us to dive deep into other people's shoes. What is really happening in the video? How is the character behaving? How is the character dealing with the changes? How is the character taking decisions? We are not really able to go in depth. We might feel that we are watching this movie and we are really understanding everything. We are understanding, but we are not able to feel it because we don't have the time to really go in depth of it.
exactly.
However, on the other hand, I feel that when we read books, we are all by ourselves. There's no competition that, okay, this book is there. So there is no advertisement saying that, read this book also, read this book also,
Yes,
read this book. So there is no competition. We are all in our perfect space and there is peace and calmness. And the major benefit with books, I feel, is once we read a particular sentence or we come across a new vocabulary word, it gives us that power to go back to that sentence and read it twice, thrice, 4 times, and interpret it in another manner, however we want to. So here I would like to talk about the concept of empathy. When we are reading books, we are actually able to empathize with the characters in the book. So
exactly,
what I
ma'am.
really, yeah. So what I really mean by empathy is when I'm able to put myself in the shoes of the other person. If somebody is telling me that I lost all money and I really don't know what to do, right? So if I have empathy for that person, I will try to put myself in the same situation by visualizing it. And at the same time, I will feel what that person is feeling. When I can empathize with that person, I think that's the real game changer for becoming more emotionally intelligent. So I feel that when we are reading books, we have enough time with us to go into the depth of each and every character of the story, understand what emotions they are feeling, understand what decisions they are taking, understand how they are dealing with different situations. So it gives us that space. So I think it definitely helps better in the development of the emotional character rather than watching videos and listening to the audio.
Exactly, ma'am. Actually, your explanation reminds me a situation. Like few days back, I was reading a book, "Do Epic Shit" by Ankur
Okay.
Warikosha, and there was a mention of like one of the false statement that you are being told in your past, that you are not allowed to ask your manager to like a question, and you are supposed to do everything that he or she tells you to do. So it reminds me of the situation, and I can well connect to that situation.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yes, so it leads to a very interesting question. Like all our audience is, I think, around 16 plus here. So it is related to corporate world. Like I will remember a situation. Like in the last month, I was going through internship selection process of Nestle
Mhm.
Private Limited. So instead of selecting a candidate on the basis of simple interview, what they did, they designed a test of a 30-minute duration, and they put a question of decision making, like how would you react in those situations. And there were some 3 or 4 games in which what you have to play, and you have to come up with the answer, or those 3 or 4 games were related to their corporate activities. And so
Mhm.
nowadays, not only Nestle, but there are many companies who focus on your behavioral skills and on your emotional quotient rather than intelligence quotient. So do you
Mhm.
think this is the right way to judging a candidate when it comes to corporate world?
Okay. Okay. Thanks for bringing that up. Because I do not have first-hand experience with this particular scenario, but I do have a couple of HR friends in my circle who keep on telling me about it. And I do read on the HR trend, so I know that the situation of interview process has changed a lot from the past few years. So definitely, I believe that when emotional intelligence tests like psychometric tests, stress interview, happens, or behavioral situation interview questions are given to people, this is, I think, a better way of selection. But again, let's understand that this is not the sole criteria for selection. It is definitely a better way of selection, because in today's world, even if you are in the technical field, you are an engineer, somewhere the employer who is hiring you knows that at the end of the year or after few years you need to be there in the leadership position. So
Exactly.
people look for leadership skills, and the most important quality of a leader is having high emotional intelligence. So instead of just hiring someone who is very good in the technical skills but really doesn't know how to manage emotions, how to take difficult decisions in the corporate world, how to deal with the colleagues when there is a conflict happening. If an employer selects someone like that, then there's definitely going to be a problem later on. So I think it's a very valid way of introducing psychometric test and stress interview and the behavioral situational questions to test the emotional intelligence of the candidates and select the right one. But again, I would say that these tests are designed in such a way that they may not be 100% accurate, but they are fairly accurate.
Yes.
Um, so once I thought, I talked to one of my HR friends and I asked her that what if the candidates already know that they are being judged on the emotional quotient factor? So they are going to fake all the answers. They're going to show themselves in the good light. Then she
Exactly.
told me that this really cannot happen, because the psychometric test, the questions are not really the same. They keep on changing as per your answers in the previous questions. So even if you try to fake, something, which so the server or whichever the test is able to identify that you're faking something, and this is not what your innate personality is. So in that case, the candidate is flagged and will not be selected. So I think
Exactly.
as per the algorithm, how these tests are designed, it is a good way. It is a better way than the previous way of interview selection.
Yes, ma'am. And it's also an important start for me for my future jobs and internships as well. So we are on a
Yeah.
last question of our session. As we know, we all face difficult situation in our life. Where in our professional life or in personal life, sometimes we have to work under pressure, and in such a situation most of the people got panic, and when you get panic, the chances of getting mistakes and committing mistakes becomes higher. So how to make sure that we are calm and composed even when the pressure is on?
Okay. I think for becoming calm and composed when the pressure is there, and pressure, of course, will be there, it is an undeniable fact in today's scenario. The five things which really work for me. Now, these are the general things which I have tried. But again, I would say that you need to do these things consistently in your daily life, whether the situation is of pressure, whether the situation is not of pressure. You need to be consistent with these five practices, and then only in the long run you will be able to see the results that your personality is becoming calm and composed. So, the first thing is meditation. Now, in meditation, I am also not able to concentrate a lot every time. My thoughts also do wander. But that does not mean that I am not meditating in the right way. People have the myth that meditation means you have to focus on one thought and you just have to not let your mind wander. But that is the wrong definition of meditation. Meditation basically means that you close your eyes, you connect with your inner self, and let whatever thoughts come to you. The moment you feel that in the guided meditation you're getting drifted away from what is being told in the meditation, the moment you realize this, that is where your wisdom lies, and that is where you need to bring the awareness back to your breath. So I can be away from the guided meditation for one whole minute and I'll be visualizing something else in the background. But the moment I realize this, I need to bring my awareness back to my breath. So I think meditation is a very beautiful way. You just need to be patient enough to experience it. Give yourself 15, 20 days to get consistent with it. And that I think is a definite way of getting yourself calm and composed. The second point is box breathing, and I do it. So before
Yes.
any session or before any exam or before any important, discussion, even I panic. So in that case, I know what I have to do. I do box breathing. So box breathing is that situation where you inhale, you hold your breath, and then you exhale. You can do it like 3, 4, 5. So for 3 seconds you can inhale, for 4 seconds you can hold your breath, and for 5 seconds you can exhale. So why this really works well is because the entire physiology of our body, even the spiritual gurus say that, runs on how we breathe. So if we are able to control our breaths, at the same time we'll be able to control our mind. So box breathing I find very beautiful technique, very beautiful. The third I would say is visualization and positive affirmation. Again, this is a very detailed concept, and I will not be teaching here how to visualize and do positive affirmations, but I'm just letting the audience know that every day when you wake up in the morning, there are many different ways of visualizing and doing the positive affirmation. It actually rewires your brain. Just believe in it and do it consistently. It has magical impact, and I have done that. But to be very honest, even when I am not consistent with this practice, I see a downfall in my performance, and I know that I need to be consistent enough to experience that calmness and clarity. So, consistency is a must in all these activities that I am stating. The fourth one, I believe, is the gratitude journal. The moment you feel that, oh, this situation is so full of pressure, how will I handle this? It's very common, even I experience it. I opened my gratitude journal and I started this practice on and off from the last 3, 4 months. And just be grateful for whatever you have. It could be your friends, it could be people around you, it could be your family, it could be the food that you eat, it could be the water that you drink, it could be the technology which is making you accessible to the outside world. It could be your laptop, it could be your phone. Just remember 5 to 10 things that you're grateful for from morning till evening. It is going to bring that positivity inside you. So there are a lot of things to be grateful for, but the point is our mind only remembers the situations which are full of pressure. So it is our duty to shift the thinking of our brain from the negative to the gratitude. When we feel about gratitude on daily basis, it brings wonders. So what you can also do is when somebody is being very rude to you or being very unkind to you, all you can do is just be grateful to that person for making you understand what you can handle, what you cannot, and showing you a different side of life and making you stronger. So you can be grateful for every single person, grateful for every single mistake. And the last point, the fifth one is healing. There are a lot of healing modalities available. Some people believe in it, some do not. But healing actually is magical because it works on the concept of energy. And universe, our entire cosmos works on energy. So if you can learn some healing modalities, you practice them on daily basis. Again, it has to be consistent. You can really see a positive shift in your calmness and clarity, even in the situations of pressure. So these are the 5 things.
Thank you so much for these insightful tips, and I got to learn. I got to know much from you, and definitely our audience and even I, we are going to apply these techniques and tools. So,
Thank you.
any parting thought that you would like to give to our audience? Any experience that you have?
Okay. So I would say to all the audience present here that emotional intelligence is a very neglected term in today's society. Let us understand that from today you can start being more emotionally intelligent. Prepare a list of all the emotions that you feel in positive situations and negative situations. Just bring a lot of self-awareness inside you. Once you start to be aware that okay, it is not sadness that I'm feeling, it is the depression that I'm feeling, it is not awkwardness that I'm feeling, it is the irritation that I'm feeling. Once you start to get that clarity on what kind of emotions you feel on daily basis, you will also be able to relate at what experiences make you feel that emotion, make you go through that emotion. So now after 15-20 days, you will be very well aware that when this kind of situation happens, my emotions change like this. When you have this awareness, the second step is to pause, breathe, and think. Just pause. Do not react. Do not react. A lot of people make the mistake, and even I must have made that mistake in my childhood or in the past, that we used to just react. Something happens and we react, we bombard. That is very dangerous in the long run. So today, whenever any stressful situation happens, or any negative situation happens, I do not react all of a sudden. What I do is I pause for 3-4 seconds, I collect all my thoughts, what I need to do, what I need to say, how I need to respond. So the thing is, I do not react, but I respond. And when we learn to respond rather than reacting, that is a very good game changer in everyone's life. Another tip that I would want to say is that not only adults but children